Welcome to the place where we take the most high impact ideas, the most thought-provoking content, and we really try to distill it down into essential, usable knowledge for you.
Yeah, we're here to cut through all the noise, bypass those superficial summaries you see everywhere and get right to the core of philosophical structure, the stuff that truly drives extraordinary performance and helps shape a resilient perspective.
And today we are, metaphorically speaking, grabbing you by the collar and demanding your full attention. We are diving into a source that is just unapologetically intense. It's direct.
Oh, yeah.
And frankly, it demands immediate accountability from anyone who listens to it. We've taken what is, widely recognized as this powerful, hyper-motivational address.
One that's been shared millions of times.
Exactly. And we're treating it not as like a reel of sound bites, but as a serious philosophical text on what it means to have human drive.
That's absolutely the right way to look at it. I mean, you have to forget the generic feel-good mantras. The core theme that we extracted from this material is it's a brutally honest assessment of what it takes to persist.
In the real world.
In the real world, yes.
Yeah.
And more importantly, understanding the true cost and the actual mechanism of success. This isn't a philosophy built on avoiding conflict or pain.
No.
It's about confronting it head on and actually using it as fuel.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty singular. We're going deep into the psychology of persistence. We're not just asking, what does success feel like? We are dissecting how you manage the inevitable psychological pain, the physical pain, the fear.
The sheer volume of it.
And the marginal effort required to achieve anything that's worthwhile and lasting. This material provides the specific, almost clinical frameworks for dealing with adversity.
Precisely. Our objective here is to isolate the specific arguments that are presented for cultivating a deep, really authentic desire. Which is, completely different from the shallow act of just wishing for success.
Right.
We need to understand the architecture of resilience that's laid out here. What are the mental steps you have to take to not just endure discomfort, but to leverage it and come out better on the other side? We're hunting for those aha moments that reveal why most people stop just short of their potential.
And why they often do it without even realizing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Subconsciously.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this philosophy of persistence. We have to start right where the source material begins, which is with a bracing dose of reality that just sets the stage for everything else. So the first premise is really the foundation for everything else, and it pulls zero punches in its assessment of the world. The text immediately establishes the stakes. It just says, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place.
And that phrasing, as harsh as it sounds, is actually deeply strategic from a psychological standpoint.
How so?
Well, it serves an essential purpose. It strips away all your comfortable illusions right from the get-go. I mean, if you start from the expectation that life should be easy or fair or, gently accommodating,
then you're set up for failure.
You are fundamentally unprepared for friction, for failure, for betrayal. The source material prepares the listener for a really tough truth, and it asserts that life will beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it.
That phrase, if you let it, that's so powerful. It's a powerful distinction.
It is.
I mean, resilience isn't some, bonus trait you might have. It's the necessary survival mechanism.
It's the default setting you need.
Right. If we believe the default state of life involves suffering and this kind of inertia, then our primary job isn't seeking happiness. It's generating forward momentum in spite of that constant resistance.
Exactly. It forces you the listener, to abandon any entitlement you might have to comfort. If the world is mean and nasty, then your approach to it has to be resilient. It has to be aggressive, even in its pursuit of change.
So the message is basically stop waiting for life to get easy.
It won't. You have to become harder. You have to become more resilient.
And this idea leads directly to what I think is maybe the most powerful reframing in the entire philosophy. And that's the definition of winning. Because if the world is constantly delivering these hits, these blows, then winning, it can't just be defined by your own successes, can it?
No, the focus has to shift entirely. It moves away from offense, away from your ability to dominate or, control a situation, and it moves toward pure, raw endurance. The text just states it so plainly.
It ain't about how hard you hit.
Right. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
See how much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's it. That is the central, non-negotiable metric of resilience that's presented here.
It's fascinating to me that the measure of greatness is defined by the depth of your absorption and recovery, not your destructive power.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's not the one-time knockout punch that our culture loves to celebrate. It's the ability to absorb these repeated systematic blows. Rejection after rejection, bad luck, exhaustion, market crashes.
I know that.
And to just remain upright, oriented toward your goal, and still be pushing.
This is such a critical insight for anyone who's pursuing a long-term goal. I mean, just think about how this applies to something like, say, surviving the first 5 years of building a business.
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
That entire period is defined less by these little bursts of brilliance and more by consistently weathering rejection, failure, supply chain issues, investor skepticism.
Just constant problems.
Constant problems. Yeah. Winning in that context isn't one successful pitch meeting. It's simply not quitting. Your staying power becomes your primary competitive advantage.
Oh, okay, but let me challenge that for a second. Doesn't this aggressive framework, this idea that you have to be willing to just relentlessly take hits, doesn't that risk becoming a dangerous license for, self-abuse or burnout?
That's a really fair question.
Where's the counterbalance to that relentless aggression?
It's a fair challenge, and this philosophy addresses it. But it doesn't do it with softness. It does it with utility. The counterbalance is found in the next point, which is the time frame of pain.
The time frame of pain.
The philosophy essentially says, yes, the pain is mandatory, but you have to understand its nature. You have to understand that it is transient, and that knowledge, that understanding is what prevents the hits from leading to a permanent collapse.
Okay, so let's look at that crucial mental distinction. The time frame of pain versus the time frame of quitting. This is the argument for pushing through discomfort, right? Even when it feels totally overwhelming, by understanding it has a shelf life.
The comparison is so stark and it's profoundly memorable. The text highlights the contrast. It says, pain is temporary.
It may last a minute or an hour or a day or even a year.
But eventually it will subside.
Which is, that's just a statement of biological and psychological fact, right?
Yeah.
Pain has a duration. It has a life cycle. It's a cost that is naturally capped.
Right. But then it's immediately juxtaposed with the consequence of failing to endure it.
And this is where the core philosophical argument for commitment really lands.
It does. The text emphasizes the consequence of quitting. If I quit, however, it lasts forever.
Forever.
When we analyze this, we see a foundational argument for pushing through discomfort. The cost of continuing is temporary pain. Okay. But the cost of quitting is a permanent, eternal outcome.
Regret.
Regret, the failure to achieve the desired state, and the permanent closure of that specific path you were on.
Wow. So you're essentially trading a temporary, finite discomfort for an eternal, unresolved sense of failure.
Exact.
That shift from a momentary decision to an eternal consequence, that's what makes the argument so compelling. It reframes the choice completely. It asks, are you buying a moment of relief right now, or are you selling your future peace of mind?
And this is where the psychological trap really lies. The immediate comfort that quitting offers you. It's an illusion. The effort you already expended to get to that point of exhaustion or frustration, it's all wasted the moment you stop.
All that pain for nothing.
For nothing. The only way to retrieve value from that suffering, the only way to justify the hits you've already taken, is to push through to the reward. You have to weaponize the fact that you already hurt.
That makes perfect sense. The pain is a sunk cost. You might as well maximize the return on that investment.
Yes.
And this philosophy then translates that big macro concept of endurance into something microscopic and actionable.
Fighting back 1 inch at a time.
Right. It uses this dramatic, almost epic language. We can climb out of hell 1 inch at a time, to describe what is really just a tiny incremental effort.
It's acknowledging that the situation might genuinely feel like hell, a state of absolute despair or crisis. But then it offers this tangible microscopic path to escape. It's the ultimate method for managing overwhelm.
It's so interesting that the text uses such dramatic language, but anchors it to such a microscopic action. If you're stuck at the bottom of a deep hole, the thought of scaling a mile-high wall is it's paralyzing.
It's impossible.
But the philosophy refocuses you entirely on that single 1 inch movement you can make right now. That's immediately achievable no matter how deep the hole is.
And this is the crucial translation from an overwhelming macro problem to an actionable micro step. The philosophy contrasts this required incremental action with the alternative,
which is being passive.
Being passive and allowing ourselves to get the shit kicked out of us. The philosophy mandates immediate, continuous movement, however minimal it is. No matter how dire the circumstances are, movement is non-negotiable.
Because it generates momentum.
It generates momentum. And momentum is the absolute antithesis of despair. If you are moving even just an inch, you are exerting power over your environment. You're not a victim anymore.
And speaking of inches, the philosophy immediately pivots from this, generalized resilience, just surviving the pain, to the granular mechanics of what it takes to achieve something great. It introduces this concept of marginal gains, stating bluntly that the margin for error is so small.
And this segment shifts the focus from, let's say, surviving generalized suffering to executing hyper-specific high-level performance. So when we talk about elite performance, whether that's in, high-stakes environments like professional sports or complex engineering or cutting-edge scientific research.
Right.
Success is almost always decided by factors that are so small, they are literally invisible to the casual observer. The difference between the good and the great is often imperceptible until you see the final result.
And the source material just drives this home with these microscopic, precise examples. It talks about 1/2 a step too late or early. Or 1/2 second too slow, too fast. I mean, these are discussions that might feel insignificant in the training room.
Sure.
But they define the outcome on game day or in the boardroom. We're talking about fractions of performance that require near total dedication to master.
They absolutely define the outcome. Think of the 1% rule. that philosophy that's been popularized across so many competitive fields. It states that achieving 100 small marginal improvements, each of which is only 1% better, they compound exponentially.
Right. It's not about one giant leap.
Not at all. The difference between an Olympic athlete and a really good collegiate athlete is rarely a massive gap in talent. It's often the cumulative effect of those half steps, those tiny fractions of timing that have been consistently perfected through years and years of focused volume.
So when we synthesize this, the core idea is pretty clear. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second.
Right.
This teaches us that high performance isn't defined by these grand, heroic gestures. It's defined by hyper-awareness and execution in these incredibly tight windows of opportunity.
It means the successful individual is the one who sees and then acts on opportunities that the less committed person. They just overlook them entirely.
They don't even see the inch.
They don't even see it. If the margin of error is half a step, the person who consistently puts in the extra hour of practice to tighten that step is the one who wins the inches.
Yeah.
It's the lawyer who spends an extra hour researching an obscure case precedent.
Or the designer who refines the color palette 6 more times after the client already said, it's fine.
Exactly. These are the details that separate competent execution from true mastery.
It sounds exhausting, honestly, constantly seeking those invisible marginal gains. It requires a level of focus that feels, I don't know, unnatural.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
And it does require an unnatural level of focus, which is why it requires protecting your ambition from the external world. Because the moment you start chasing those marginal gains, external resistance is going to appear. The average person looks at your obsession and your dedication to that tiny detail, and they call it ridiculous. This is why the material has to address the mandate to protect the dream.
Right, I remember that part. It addresses those external pressures. You got a dream, you got to protect it. And the source material is very clear that the reason for this protection is rooted in a fundamental human behavior.
The cynicism of others.
The cynicism of others, yeah. It highlights this predictable defense mechanism of those who haven't committed to that marginal effort themselves.
It says people can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it.
Which isn't always malicious, is it?
No, not necessarily. It's a self-preservation mechanism. Think about it. If your ambition proves that massive success is possible through effort, it simultaneously proves that their lack of success is probably due to their lack of effort.
So your striving challenges their whole worldview.
And their comfort. Your hard work makes them uncomfortable about their inaction.
That's a profound social dynamic. They aren't just doubting your ability, they are actively defending their own inaction. If you're striving for a level of success that other people deem impossible or unrealistic, their instinct is often to just pull you back down to their level of comfort, to their equilibrium.
And that is why the inches are not just about physical effort. A huge part of the fight is psychological protection against that external doubt.
Building a wall?
Part of the fight is building a psychological wall to filter out the noise of non-believers. The energy you save, not fighting their doubt, not justifying your commitment to them, can be reinvested directly into getting that half a step right. It's all about resource allocation in service of that tiny margin of error that ultimately decides the victory.
Okay, so this realization that true success requires this relentless pursuit of invisible gains while you're also fighting off external resistance, that naturally leads us into what is maybe the most challenging and and convicting section of this whole philosophy.
The gap.
The huge cavernous gap between merely wanting something and truly committing to it.
And this is the section that forces a brutal level of honesty about your own hierarchy of desires. The material delivers this really harsh critique of half-hearted effort. It says, most of you said that you want to be successful, but you don't want it bad. You just kind of want it.
Oof. You just kind of want it.
Right. This is where so many motivational approaches fail. They celebrate the wish. This philosophy celebrates the sacrifices required to turn that wish into a reality.
It gets painfully specific, too, about the counter desires that consistently win out over success.
Yeah.
It says success is desired less than wanting to party or wanting to be cool or, and this is the one that gets me, wanting to sleep. That one hits hard because those are such fundamental, relatable comforts. The idea that this grand goal of success consistently loses the battle against basic rest and immediate social gratification.
It's an exercise in motivational mathematics. It's about prioritizing comfort. If your desire for success, which requires sustained marginal effort and profound discomfort, if that desire does not outweigh your desire for basic comforts and immediate social validation,
then you're never going to do the hard thing.
The marginal effort, those precious inches, will simply never be applied. If you want sleep more than you want to study for that final exam, you will stop studying when you get tired.
And you'll accept the B instead of fighting for the A.
Exactly. You'll rationalize it. And that's the choice.
So, true desire is measurable. It's not measured by what we say we want, but by what we consistently choose to give up.
Yes, what we forego.
If the price of commitment is giving up Netflix for a few hours, but we watch Netflix anyway, then we don't want the outcome as badly as we want the escape.
Precisely. And that choice, that decision, links directly to the concept of self-belief, which the philosophy addresses with this simple, really potent dichotomy on the power of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. The line, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. It's incredibly concise and so powerful.
It is a profound statement on how your mindset sets its own limits. It's not necessarily about external reality or fate or destiny. It's about the internal permission you grant yourself to commit the necessary effort.
So if you believe you can't,
you automatically withhold the effort. You don't try for the marginal gains because you've already decided it's pointless, which of course ensures your failure. Why would you try if you've already decided failure is guaranteed?
And the opposite is true.
Conversely, if you believe you can, you willingly endure the pain and the hits because you believe there's a reward on the other side. And that endurance is the actual tangible mechanism of success. The belief doesn't magically make the work easy.
Yeah.
It simply makes the work possible by justifying the cost.
But the ultimate test of this self-belief, according to this philosophy, isn't actually the fear of failure. It's confronting what the source material calls our deepest fear. And this is the moment where the psychology shifts from external effort to this really deep internal, almost existential reckoning.
This is the critical aha moment. This is where the philosophy transcends simple hustle culture and enters a much deeper psychological realm. The text introduces this profound shift. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
That is just, it's so completely counterintuitive. We're taught our whole lives to fear the ceiling, right? The limits of our ability. This philosophy is telling us we actually fear the floor dropping out from under us. We fear our limitless potential.
It completely flips the script on self-doubt. The real internal barrier isn't the fear of failure. It's the fear of the consequences of success.
What consequences?
The responsibility, the visibility, the relentless, continuous effort required to sustain immense power and achievement. The text elaborates on this, stating, "It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us."
So what does that light represent in a practical sense? What are we really afraid of?
I think it represents the self you are forced to become when you fully commit. Just think about what that level of success actually demands from a person. It demands relentless, high-stakes performance, the expectation of millions, the inability to hide or retreat,
And the continuous need for sacrifice.
a continuous non-return commitment that most people subconsciously shy away from. They're not afraid they will try and fail. They are afraid they will try and succeed and then be trapped by the terrifying responsibility of maintaining that success. They fear the new person they must become.
Wow. So people often self-sabotage not because they're incapable, but because they are terrified of stepping into their full, powerful self, a self that requires them to give up the comforting anonymity.
And the easy excuses.
The easy excuses of half-hearted effort forever.
Right.
It's easier to be the person who could have been successful than the person who is successful and now carries the massive burden of performance.
That is the internal negotiation that defines the commitment gap. The shallow desire to kind of want success is a safe position. It allows for an easy retreat back to comfort, back to being a person who can blame external factors. But embracing your power, that is a non-negotiable commitment to the pain, the hits, and the continuous struggle for the inch. This fear of our own power is often why people choose sleep over success. They are subconsciously protecting themselves from the uncomfortable future that absolute commitment entails.
Okay, so once we've identified that, once we see that the fundamental obstacle is often our own fear of power, the fear of our own light, the next logical step in this philosophy is, well, the immediate imperative to act. You have to stop oscillating between I can and I can't. You must simply make the choice to become that powerful, resilient person.
And this section focuses intensely on the necessity of that decision, the need to break the paralysis of analysis and doubt. The source just demands immediate decisiveness from you. It says, make a choice. Just decide what it's going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to do it. Just decide.
It's an intellectual command, really. It's telling you to stop viewing your future as something that passively happens to you and start viewing it as something you consciously and immediately construct through your decisions.
And once that choice is made, it violently challenges all of your self-imposed limitations.
It asks that amazing question. Why not? Why can't I be MVP of the league?
By asking why not, right, you force yourself to actually justify the limitations you currently accept. And if you can't provide a legitimate, insurmountable barrier, which most of us can't, then the text implies that the limit is only present until it is consciously rejected and replaced by a decision.
It's a powerful technique for reframing your expectations. It forces you to realize that those justifications we all have, I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, I don't know the right people, they're usually just the protective mechanisms we just talked about.
Yeah, they're born out of the fear of embracing one's full potential. The choice itself is the first crucial step in shattering that illusion.
And once you've made that choice and accepted the internal power that's required, you have to immediately act on it. This is where it links self-belief directly to the willingness to endure pain. The text provides a really direct instruction on understanding self-worth and action.
It connects your inherent value to the necessary suffering. It says, if you know what you're worth, go and get what you're worth.
Right, but there's a catch.
But that assertion of worth is immediately qualified with the hard truth. You got to be willing to take the hits. Self-worth, in this context, it's not a passive identity you feel good about. It is an active willingness to endure the painful process necessary to obtain the life or the status you believe you deserve.
So if you aren't willing to take the hits, if you retreat at the first sign of friction,
then you don't truly believe in your worth enough to fight for it. Your actions betray your words.
That makes the pursuit of success a direct measure of self-respect. If you respect yourself enough to believe you deserve something great, you will suffer greatly to achieve it.
Absolutely. And this entire framework then culminates in this powerful, almost spiritual conclusion about where this power truly resides, what the philosophy calls the kingdom within.
The text famously addresses this idea by quoting scripture, right? It says, in the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it's written, "The kingdom of God is within man." So within this highly secular, intensely motivational context, how are we supposed to interpret this idea of an inner kingdom?
I think we have to interpret it not as theology, but as a potent declaration of inherent, accessible, and democratic power.
Democratic power, I like that.
The kingdom is not some external reward you get after you die. It is the internal latent potential residing within every single person right now. It is the realization that the engine of your resilience, of your creativity, is not granted by external forces. It is an innate, accessible resource you already have.
It's a democratization of greatness, basically. It says this power is not one man nor a group of men, but in all men. In you.
Exactly. And that power has immediate real-world applications for your decision-making and your actions.
So what can you do with it?
Well, the philosophy attributes immense creative power to the individual. It says you, the people, have the power to create happiness, to make this life a wonderful adventure. This provides the moral and existential justification for pushing through that temporary pain.
So if you have this internal power to create a wonderful adventure, wasting that potential it's a moral failure.
It's a moral failure against yourself and your own capabilities. This inherent accessible power is the reservoir you tap into when you are taking the hits and you are fighting for those small marginal inches.
So the ultimate reassurance for you, the listener, is you already possess the resource you need. You just need to decide to use it and then withstand the pain that using it is going to require.
And that realization allows the philosophy to deliver its ultimate takeaway on mental barriers.
The final synthesis is so clear.
It is. Because limits like fears are often just an illusion. This is the ultimate freeing takeaway. Perceived obstacles are largely self-constructed. They're built by the fear of one's own power or the unwillingness to endure temporary pain. Once you accept the reality that life is hard, that winning is endurance, and that the power resides within you, those limits just dissolve. They were never real boundaries.
They were just boundaries of commitment that you set for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, now we can transition from that internal psychological philosophy to the more external practical application of effort and personal responsibility. Because one of the most common derailers for anyone trying to achieve a high level of performance is this whole concept of talent.
The talent myth.
The idea that some people just have it and others don't, which becomes this perfect justification for their own lower effort. This philosophy just tackles that excuse head on.
It absolutely attacks the alibis we use to rationalize a lack of commitment. The text gets really specific with the excuses, right? It says, I'm not good in math. That's right, because you never study. I am no good in rhyme. Because you never write before.
It's so blunt.
It is. But these are not statements of innate inability. They are merely reports of your current undeveloped competence. The problem isn't your genetics. The problem is the volume of effort you've put in or haven't.
So the philosophy then draws this really sharp, necessary distinction between that innate ability and earned competence, between talent and skill.
And this is a crucial, highly actionable framework. The material defines talent as something you have naturally. It's the baseline. It's the raw potential you start with. But it clearly states that skill is only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft. This is the critical separation. Talent is like a lottery ticket. Skill is a house you build brick by brick.
So skill is earned.
Skill is earned through the volume of focused effort applied over time, especially during those moments when you are tired, frustrated, and you just want to quit.
It puts the burden of the outcome squarely on the consistency of your effort. If you want to be a great coder, it's not some genetic gift. It's the direct, measurable consequence of the thousands of hours you spent debugging frustrating problems long after the talented but undisciplined person decided to go home.
Talent is static. Skill is dynamic. And it must be earned through repetition and endurance, particularly in those marginal spaces we talked about.
And this concept of focused, sustained effort immediately brings us back to the psychological price tag.
The sacrifice.
The sacrifice required for transformation. You can't achieve massive change while you're simultaneously clinging to your present comfortable self. The philosophy demands a constant trade-off.
It's the philosophical price of persistence, and it's encapsulated in that line. To be able at any moment sacrifice what you are for what you will become.
So what does that mean, day to day?
It's this constant negotiation between the immediate comfort of your current identity, what you are right now, and the desired, difficult future identity, what you will become.
And what you are is the person who gets tired.
The person who gets tired, who wants to party, who takes the easy route, and who secretly fears their own power. What you will become is the skilled, resilient person capable of massive achievement. The source mandates that at any given moment, at the point of exhaustion or frustration or temptation, you have to choose the future self over the present comfortable self. This ongoing sacrifice is what generates the marginal gains needed for success.
And here's where the responsibility segment comes in, right? Because if you fail to make that sacrifice, if you fail to push through the temporary pain, the natural human response is often to look for some external justification for why you haven't succeeded. And this is where the philosophy delivers its powerful message about absolute personal responsibility.
It reinforces the theme of taking absolute ownership of your position in life. The instruction is so direct, so uncompromising. Do not point fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody.
It instantly shifts the focus away from all those external variables and puts it right back on your internal choices and your lack of sufficient commitment.
And the condemnation for avoiding that responsibility is remarkably strong. It leaves no room for excuses.
Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
And that challenge is essential because blame serves a temporary psychological function. It protects your ego in the short term. But the source recognizes that blame is ultimately debilitating because it places the power to change your situation outside of yourself.
You become a victim.
You become a victim. It demands that you accept the consequences of your choices, both positive and negative. If you are not where you want to be, it is a direct result of the cumulative choices you made to forego the inches, to choose sleep over study, and to avoid taking the hits.
Yeah.
True worth, as we discussed earlier, is proven by the willingness to own the struggle and the outcome completely.
Now, after all this discussion of personal power and sacrifice and relentless effort, the philosophy introduces a really vital moral anchor.
Yes.
The success you achieve through all this intense effort, it must not be purely selfish.
And this elevates the motivation from just, personal gain, a better car, a bigger house, to societal contribution. The ultimate purpose is stated so clearly. If you are not making someone else's life better, you're wasting your time.
Wow.
It ties all that hard-earned skill and resilience directly to service.
That reframes the entire purpose of the struggle. It means that the power, the skill, the resilience you developed while you were fighting for those inches, it's all fundamentally wasted if it doesn't eventually translate into a positive impact for other people.
It redefines the measure of success yet again. It's not just about how much you accrue for yourself, but how much you ultimately contribute. It gives you a sustainable motivation that is external to yourself, something you could fight for even when your own personal energy is totally depleted.
So as we move toward the final synthesis here, the philosophy comes full circle. It returns to its primary theme, pain management, but now with this new context of power and purpose and responsibility. The approach to suffering is reframed entirely.
From avoidance to utility.
From avoidance to utility, exactly. The focus shifts to emotional regulation and just maximizing the return on investment of your suffering.
The text highlights this shift. It says, don't cry to quit, cry to keep going, don't cry to quit.
What a line.
It's the mandate to harness your existing suffering. We often see pain and tears as signals that it's time to surrender. Here, they become a signal of your depth of commitment. They're a relief that should come before you redouble your effort, not a reason to retreat.
And this is so powerfully connected back to that foundational truth we talked about in the very beginning about the cost of pain already being incurred. The mandate is crystal clear. You already in pain, you already hurt, get a reward from it.
This is the definitive statement on weaponizing discomfort. Since you have already paid the cost, the physical exhaustion, the emotional frustration, the hit you just took, maximizing the benefit requires continuing through the existing difficulty. Quitting at the peak of suffering ensures you get all of the cost with none of the benefit.
Right.
Continuing means the pain, which was temporary anyway, is now instrumental to your success. You've earned the right to endure, so you have to press the advantage.
It's the realization that when you're at your most miserable, you are also potentially closest to the finish line, or at least closest to the breakthrough that the person who quit 3 hours ago will never, ever experience.
Exactly. And because life is a continuous series of these choices, the philosophy offers a continuous opportunity for reinvention. It understands that you will fail, you will slip up, you will choose sleep some days.
It's not about being perfect.
It doesn't ask you to be perfect forever. It asks you to restart the effort right now, in this very next moment.
And this is the final rallying cry, the call for constant renewal. Every day is a new day. Every moment is a new moment. Now you got to go out and show them that you're a new creature.
And this provides a profound sense of perpetual opportunity for a micro reset. You are not defined by yesterday's failures or yesterday's fatigue or yesterday's poor choices. The moment you are hearing this right now, you have the chance to be a new creature, one who has decided to sacrifice comfort for commitment, one who is willing to take the hits, and one who knows their worth and is using the power they have within. It's an instruction to start fighting for that inch today, right now. Hashtag outro.
Wow. What a dense, demanding, and ultimately a really empowering philosophy we've unpacked today. To recap it all, this philosophy of resilience and drive is built on 3 core non-negotiable tenets that you can use immediately to just audit your own level of commitment.
First, success is measured not by your initial impact, but by your resilience. Specifically, how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Winning is endurance, plain and simple, because pain is temporary, but quitting is permanent.
Second, skill is developed through obsessive, high-volume practice, not just talent. The marginal gains required for mastery, those small, crucial inches, are earned through sacrifice and the continuous hours of beating on your craft long after everyone else has chosen comfort.
And third, and maybe most crucially, true limits are internal illusions. These limits are not externally imposed. They are contradicted by the vast accessible power that resides within you. And it's accessible the moment you stop fearing your own potential and decide to fully commit to the difficult future self you know you deserve to be.
Understanding these specific frameworks allows you to quickly assess your own level of commitment. Are you stopping because of genuine external barriers, or are you stopping because you would rather choose sleep or social acceptance over the deep, productive discomfort required to win the inches?
That internal check is just vital. The philosophy asserts that we are defined by our potential, and our current state is merely a reflection of our current willingness to endure pain and take responsibility for our choices.
The source material leaves us with a final provocative thought. It's one that synthesizes everything we've just discussed. Sacrifice what you are for what you will become.
So if we accept the premise that your greatest obstacle is actually the fear of your own power, then the question for you is, what specific comfort, what part of the present protective self must you decide to sacrifice today to stop playing small, to leverage the pain you already feel, and to begin fighting your way back into the light, 1 inch at a time?
Go get what you're worth.